Alright, I'm back again with another recent gaming episode. I have 10 games here that I've played during this month and at the end of December. So let's get into it. Starting off with Hyper Sentinel for the PS4. Now, the collectors watching this are fainting at the moment because, as you can see, this is limited to 300. And I opened it and played it from the disc. Insane. How could you open a video game from the plastics and play it when it loses value? Well, that's too bad. Hyper Sentinel is a shooter. It's all right. Let's say a 6 out of 10. It's a type of like top-down shooter where you fly. It's like an infinite runner / top-down shooter. You are constantly moving. You cannot stop the spacecraft or whatever. And you have to fly around and flip the ship around and destroy all the targets as fast as you can without taking damage. So it's like an arcade challenge shooter. Nothing special, but if you're into arcade shooters, maybe worth checking out. Now, next up, another PS4 game, A Hat in Time. I started playing this in co-op with a friend a long time ago. Maybe a year ago, but the co-op doesn't really work that well because it's not split screen. It's one screen, and you have to stay on the same screen with the other person. It's awkward. It's awkward. It doesn't work very well. Not very well at all. So I played this solo. I started it again from the beginning and finished it solo. Very enjoyable 3D platformer. The first DLC, Seal the Deal, is also included on disc. The second DLC, the cat Cyberpunk DLC, is not included. So I got that separately and played that as well. So the DLC was pretty fun. The Seal the Deal DLC is really fun. Like, has these cute seal characters in it, but yeah, like one of the best 3D platformers I've played in a long time. So like a strong 8 out of 10, maybe even a 9 out of 10 on a good day. Very funny game as well. Lots of jokes and quite charming writing. Next up, I platinumed Night in the Woods. I think I also platinumed A Hat in Time. Yeah, I did, but I didn't do all of the DLC trophies. Yeah. Night in the Woods, a very special game. There was some problems with the development team, and the team broke apart and everything like that. I don't know much about that situation, but the game is very good. Again, a funny game, a 2D exploration game. With some story bits in it. Also has some rhythm game, music mini games in it that are very fun. All of the music in the game is excellent as well. So yeah, it's a very like heavy story with many weird twists and turns. I think the writing kind of falls apart at the last third of the game. But everything before that is fantastic. So yeah, another strong 8 out of 10, definitely. Night in the Woods, worth checking out if you're into indie games that are very heavy on the story side. Many branching paths as well. I ran through the game again to see the different paths. There are many story bits that you completely miss depending on what you choose. Right, another PS4 game. Shadow of the Beast. This is a remake of an old, is it an Amiga game, I guess? A 2D action platformer. This physical is the Asian, Chinese, English one. long ago sold out. I don't know if it's possible to get it very easily anymore. But yeah. At the start, I thought this game was absolute garbage. But after getting some upgrades and actually understanding how the combat system works, this combat system is very difficult to get into. It's quite complicated. It's very heavily timing based, dodging based, blocking based. You have to do a lot of dodging and blocking. Like all of the fighting is in 2D, and there are these just hordes of enemies coming from all over the place, from behind you, in front of you, everywhere. And it's quite difficult to not get hit unless you know what you're doing. So at first, I didn't know what I was doing. I thought the game was garbage, but I kind of learned to appreciate it the more I played it. And yeah, like a 7 out of 10. For the PS4, very impressive graphics. The backgrounds of the levels are very detailed. Lots of variation as well in the different levels. Yeah, Shadow of the Beast. It's alright. Next up, we have the Bit Trip. I played a bunch of these games a long time ago, last year, early last year, I think. But I didn't finish many of them, so I went back and I finished some of them. I finished Bit Trip Runner, which is like the main game here. Also the game that the developer is probably best known for. So an infinite runner platformer. I wasn't a huge fan of that game because the later levels get very annoying. Like it hasn't been designed in a way that's fun to play. It has been designed in a way that annoys the player, like insta-kill moments that you just cannot see coming, and you have to learn the levels by heart, basically, in order to even get through some of the ones near the end of the game. So, not a huge fan of Bit Trip Runner. That's maybe a 6 out of 10. But the other game that I finished, which is Bit Trip Void, this one, that one I liked a lot. Like that one is like a strong 7 out of 10. It's the one where you have to avoid the white blobs and eat the black blobs. And every time you eat a black blob, you grow in size and then you have to burst yourself. There's a very interesting rhythm to that game. It's also quite challenging, the boss fights especially. So yeah, I like that one a lot. There are 3 games here that only have motion controls, and those can just fuck off. I'm not going to even try to play them. The motion controls are awful. That's Bit Trip Beat, Bit Trip Core, and Bit Trip Flux, I guess. Only motion controls, they're awful. And yeah, Bit Trip Fate is the rail shooter. That one I finished last year already. That one was pretty fun as well. So that's the Bit Trip collection. It's a mixed bag. There are some alright games in it. Right, next up, the only game in this video that I did not like at all. So this is Oninaki, a action JRPG by Tokyo RPG Factory. It's quite interesting that Tokyo RPG Factory, they are getting worse every time they release a game. Like they started off with I Am Setsuna, which I haven't played, but a lot of people like that game. Then they did Lost Sphere, that I played last year, and thought that it's an alright JRPG. Has an interesting art style, some good music, some like very typical JRPG vibes. It was pretty good. It was alright, like a 6 out of 10 JRPG. And now they released Oninaki. Well, not now. It's a couple of years old now, and I think that this game is just garbage. Like it's surprisingly bad. It is disturbingly bad. When I started playing the game, it plays a lot like Ys. Like an action RPG where you run around this quite small open map and there are enemies in there, and you just hack and slash them. So also the enemy designs look a lot like Ys as well. So maybe there are some people working at Tokyo RPG Factory who used to work for Falcom. I don't know, but some very clear similarities there. And the combat is so bad. It is so slow and unresponsive and just not fun at all. The game is built around this mechanic where you have these like phantoms that you collect that do the fighting for you. They all have different weapons and abilities and like play styles. And the first 3 that you get are atrociously bad. Especially the second one with the spear. So slow, so bad, so awful. And that, like, most of the characters in the game are just bad. I found myself using the wolf dog character the most, just because it was the one of the more agile ones, and it also has this large area of effect attacks that could kill quite quickly enemies. And that was what I was doing. Like by the time I got to the 20-hour mark, I was just trying to get through the game, and it just won't end. It's so long. It took me like 50 hours to get through this game. And now you're wondering, why would you play a game that you don't like for 50 hours? Because I had already played it for 20 hours, and it would be a waste of time to stop. So I have to finish it. I cannot put it on my shelf if I haven't finished it, if I've played it that much. So I had to try and just get through it. Eventually I started just listening to podcasts in the background and just grinding the game for hours and hours and hours, just trying to get to the end. The game won't end. There are so many places where it could end, but it doesn't. Right? So that's 2 negatives: the combat and just how long it is. It's such a grind to get through. And probably the worst part of the game, that I've seen some people online praising this game for the story. Like, the biggest problem that I have with the storytelling of this game is that for the first around 10 hours, there isn't really even a main storyline. Like, the main storyline only picks up after you get to a certain point and you turn into another character. Spoilers, I won't spoil what happens, but you get turned into this other character. At that point, the story gets kind of interesting. There's a part in the middle of the game, let's say around the 12 to 16 hour mark, that I really got into the game and I thought that it was turning it like around. Like now this is the good stuff. But now it gets worse. It gets worse after that. And the combat is so bad. It's so bad. It's unbearable. And almost all of the game is just that combat. It's so slow. It's so slow and unresponsive. It reminds me of the PS4 game Lords of the Fallen, the original one, not the remake, not the new game, but the original Lords of the Fallen. Like, after you play Dark Souls and you go to Lords of the Fallen, how slow and awful the movement in that game is. That's what Oninaki feels like. It feels like you are walking in knee-deep mud all the time. It is so slow and just not fun to play at all. But yeah, the storyline, for the first around 10 hours, you are doing side quests, but they are called main quests. But they are side quests. Like, it's complete filler. The game starts with 10 hours of forced side quest filler. Like, you go to this main quest, you have to go someplace, like there's a prison mine or whatever somewhere, and you have to get there to meet a character or something like that. And while you are trying to get there are all these like awful waste of time filler side quests that pop up and that you have to do in order to progress. It's like you are forced to play the side quest. You are trying to go to the main quest, and then some elderly couple turns up and they like give you some meaningless task, like, oh, there's that tree over there. You have to go to that tree because my old buddy used to stay under it and whatever. And then you go to the tree and there's a boss fight for no reason. And it has nothing to do with the main storyline. And you're all the time just forced to do this waste of time side content that you aren't even allowed to like decide for yourself if you want to do it or not. Like you're stopped from getting to the main story of the game, and it's awful. Even very late on in the game, during one of the like almost one of the last areas of the game, you are forced to do again like an elderly man appears and wants you to go somewhere and do something for him. Like why am I forced to do this shit? It's just all the time. Okay, I'm starting to get annoyed and I want to move on because there are some incredible games coming up next. Right, next up we have RoboCop for the PS5. I played almost all of this game last year in September, but I got distracted by work and everything else, and I had to put it on in my backlog for a moment. And now in early January, I just sat down and it was one session and I finished it. Like 4 hours or 5 hours or so, and I just finished it. It's a very good game. I enjoyed it quite a bit, like a strong 8 out of 10. It's definitely a janky, like AA game. It reminds me a lot of early 2000 shooters, like Soldier of Fortune, where it's just incredibly violent and just it's comedic in how bloody it is. Reminds me a lot of Soldier of Fortune. Also reminds me of the PS3 Deus Ex game, Human Revolution, that has this quite small hub world that has these side quests in it and all kinds of buildings that you can get into and hidden secrets. Reminded me a bit of something like that. So that's a pretty good combination, Soldier of Fortune plus Deus Ex. This is an example of also a licensed game that is very good. The writing is hilarious. RoboCop is the master of dry comedy. It's such a funny character, and the writing is really funny. And yeah, I really like this game. Like if you're into first person shooters and like games that aren't necessarily 100% linear, there's some exploration as well, some side quests to do. Yeah, check this one out. Definitely. It's worth it. Then we have 3 more games. At this point, you're probably wondering, how the hell do you have all the time to play these games? Well, I was very sick for, let's say, well, I'm still not completely recovered from it, but for like 2.5 weeks, I could do anything else but sleep, cough, and just sit in front of the television, basically. So I had a lot of time to play games. Next up, we have Castlevania Advanced Collection. I only finished the first one, so this is a commentary on Circle of the Moon. Kind of like Symphony of the Night, but not as complex. I mean, it is a Game Boy Advance game. For a Game Boy Advance game, it is extremely, extremely impressive. Like very good. The music is fantastic. It's up there with the best Castlevania music I've heard. The map is quite large. I was surprised by how large it was. What I did not know about this game, that came as quite a large shock for me, was that it's really difficult. And I had to Google at one point, like, Castlevania games ranked by difficulty, and pretty much everyone had this one either first or second. And I can see why, because I had a lot of trouble getting through some of the bosses. The Adramelech, the guy who's chained to the wall, like that's the first real skill test in a game. I got through that pretty easily. then you get to death, and all the other bosses after that, just ridiculous stuff. And I was trying for a long time. I was trying to play without using any of the magic spells or using any of that sort of thing. I usually don't like using those kind of things. I was just using the basic attack, like the whip attack. But when I got to the final boss fight, I had to just use like all of the magic available. It was incredibly difficult. So yeah, Circle of the Moon. It's kind of like Symphony of the Night, but a Game Boy Advance version of it. So it's smaller, more simple. It's not as good as that, obviously, but a very enjoyable Castlevania game. So I'm looking forward to playing some of the other ones next that aren't necessarily as brutally difficult. So yeah, a good Castlevania game, Circle of the Moon. And then we have 2 games left. Let's start off with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, which is just a fantastic game. Like, oh yeah, Circle of the Moon, 8 out of 10 as well. So lots of 8 out of 10s in this one. Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, 10 out of 10, no question about it. The original game, it's a Counter-Strike Source mod, I guess, or at least it was made in the Source engine. And a very nostalgic game for me. I played it way back in the day, over 10 years ago. I guess the game was released in 2013. I probably played it in 2013 or maybe 2014. So that's over 10 years now. And yeah, just one of the funniest, best written games ever. Dry British humor. I mean, it's not for everyone. Some people can't stand British humor, but if you like dry British humor, like, this is the perfect game. The narrator is so funny. There are so many different secrets and hidden paths and different variations. There were even some stuff that I don't remember seeing when I originally played the game, so I found some more stuff than I did back in the day. And then you have all of the Ultra Deluxe content, so there is a new door that leads to new content. And the way that's done, I don't want to spoil anything, because this is a game that has to be experienced by everyone. Like, this is one of the highest recommendations I can give to a game. The way the new content has been written into the game is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The meta commentary on the state of the video game industry and Steam reviews and everything that it comments on, it's so good. So if you're into games where you walk around and listen to a dry British guy talking to you, this is the perfect game for you, right? And then I'll end with Balatro. This is the physical for the PS5. Also comes with these collectible cards. So you have some aces and you have some jokers. I'm not going to open the card packs, but yeah, there's that as well. Balatro, developed by one guy. I played the game for almost 100 hours during last year and now in January. The reason why I include it here is because I finally completed the collection, so I have every card unlocked, all the vouchers, all the jokers, all the tags, everything open 100%, and I finished the game on the hardest difficulty, the gold stake level as well. So there is still more stuff to do here. Like, I've played for 100 hours and there's still more stuff to do. There are all the challenge levels, for example. But yeah, this is a type of game that I'll pick up every once in a while from the shelf and play a couple of rounds and stuff like that. But what a fantastic game. So much content. It does get a bit repetitive by the end when you kind of start to get the feel for what cards are good and which cards aren't really that good, and you kind of end up with the same same jokers, like always get Brainstorm, always get Blueprint. There are just some jokers that are so overpowered that you just have to get them and build a deck around them, basically. So I did end up like it did end up getting a bit repetitive by the end, but yeah. So that was one of the reasons why I was kind of wondering, is this a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10? But it was developed by one guy, and I played for almost 100 hours, and I think it deserves a 10 out of 10. It's one of the best indie games probably ever made. If I think of indie games developed by small teams that are just so incredibly good, I think of games like Stardew Valley and Hollow Knight and Balatro. Like Balatro belongs on that short list of just a couple of games that are so extraordinarily incredible that, yeah, what a fantastic game. And just came out of nowhere last year. Also, this is when I started wondering how many games from 2024 have I played. I'm not sure if I've played anything other than Balatro. I usually work with a couple of years of delay. So I'm currently playing games like RoboCop was 2023, I guess, but I'm playing games like Night in the Woods and A Hat in Time now. Like those are years old. So I don't really play that many recent games or games that are brand new, but yeah. Balatro, that's a good place to end the video. This was longer than I expected, almost 30 minutes. Well, there you go. That's the games that I've played in the last month or so. Yeah. Next week, Silent Hill 2 remake review. I left it out of this video just because I don't want to say anything about it. But yeah, I recently also finished Silent Hill 2 remake. So a massive review of that coming up, probably over an hour long. I haven't filmed it yet, but yeah, I have lots of notes for it. So look forward to that. I'll be back next week. Bye-bye.